You know, we often talk about love like it's fireworks, like it's loud and bold and cinematic, but real friendship isn't always that dramatic. It doesn't have to be. In fact, I've come to believe that friendship is quiet and consistent. It's not about the number of selfies you take together. It's about who picks up the phone at 2 a.m. when you're falling apart. It's about the text that just says, thinking of you, when you least expect it but need it the most. See, I've lived in a world where everything is constantly changing. Different cities, different time zones, different sets, different energies. And in the middle of all that chaos, what has grounded me most are the people who never made a big show of their loyalty, but lived it. Friends who didn't need to update their stories to prove they were with me. They just were with me, quietly, consistently. We sometimes confuse attention for affection. We mistake noise for connection. But true friends don't need a spotlight. They don't demand constant proof. They just show up again and again, without needing applause. That's what makes them rare. That's what makes them powerful. Consistency, that's the heart of it. Because it's easy to be around someone when everything's going well, when the world's clapping for you. But it takes a different kind of bond to walk with someone through the silence, through the valleys, through the uncertain days when there's no red carpet, no makeup, and no smiles to fake. Friendship shows its face most clearly not when you're laughing, but when you're breaking. And they're still there and quiet. That doesn't mean empty. It means safe. It means a space where you can breathe, where you don't have to perform, where you don't have to explain yourself. Quiet is powerful. In a world that's constantly screaming for attention, a quiet presence speaks volumes. It says, I see you, I get you, I've got you. So if you have a friend who doesn't always say the right thing but always listens, who doesn't always show up in the loudest way but never disappears, that's gold. That's a treasure you don't let go of. Because in the long run, it's not the loudest voices that stay, it's the steady ones, the ones that whisper, I'm here, and then prove it every single time. I think friendship, real friendship, doesn't need to be put on display. It needs to be honored, nurtured, respected, and above all, trusted. So if you're lucky enough to have even one friend like that, hold them close, because in this loud, fast, ever-changing world, a quiet and consistent friendship is everything. In a world obsessed with appearances, we often think that the louder something is, the more real it must be. But when it comes to friendship, that's not true. Real friendship doesn't need a stage or an audience. It doesn't seek validation through pictures, posts, or public declarations. In fact, the most meaningful connections often exist behind the scenes, away from the noise. Some of the strongest friendships are the ones that never need to be showcased because their foundation isn't based on attention. It's based on authenticity. The quiet presence of a true friend can be far more powerful than the loudest crowd of supporters. We live in a time where people document every moment online, where friendships can look perfect in curated photos, but lack depth when it really counts. That's where true friends stand apart. They don't show up because there's something to gain or because it looks good. They show up because they care, not for likes, not for validation, but simply because your well-being matters to them. These are the people who may never post a birthday tribute or tag you in everything, but they are the first to call when they sense something is off. Their loyalty doesn't come with conditions. Their love doesn't come with a spotlight. You don't need someone to cheer for you the loudest to prove they care. What matters more is the friend who listens without interrupting, who remembers the small details you mention in passing, who reaches out just because they felt your energy shift. That kind of friendship doesn't need to perform. It just needs to exist. It's built on trust, not trends, on truth, not theatrics. And once you've experienced it, you begin to see how all the noise from the world doesn't matter nearly as much. This kind of friendship gives you space to breathe, space to grow, and space to heal. It's not about being in each other's faces all the time, but about being in each other's hearts no matter the distance. A quiet friend who shows up consistently, who holds your hand in silence, who supports you without needing to be noticed, that's rare. And it's powerful, because when the lights go down and the crowd goes home, it's not the loud voices that stay. It's the steady ones, the ones who never needed attention to be valuable, the ones who loved you without needing to prove it. That's the friendship that lasts. That's the kind that matters. Consistency is what transforms friendship from a moment into a lifelong connection. It's easy to be present during the celebrations, during the laughter, during the victories. But true friendship is revealed in the in-between moments, the ordinary days, the tough seasons, and the silences that stretch without explanation. A consistent friend doesn't need reminders to check in. They don't disappear when the spotlight fades or when your life feels messy. They're there quietly, without being asked, without needing recognition. Their presence becomes a steady rhythm, one you can count on when everything else feels unpredictable. We often chase intensity in our relationships, looking for grand gestures or emotional highs. But consistency doesn't always look exciting. Sometimes it looks like the same voice of encouragement every week. It looks like someone remembering your routines, your fears, and your dreams, and being there for each one. It's the comfort of knowing that you don't have to earn their care. You don't have to perform for their attention. You don't need to constantly update them to stay relevant in their lives. They're invested in your story, whether it's unfolding dramatically or moving slowly through quiet chapters. Inconsistent friendships, no matter how passionate they start, eventually create insecurity. They leave you guessing, wondering if you did something wrong or if the connection was ever real. That uncertainty drains you, but when someone is consistent, they build something far deeper than moments of fun. They build trust that they'll show up. Trust that they'll mean what they say. Trust that you're safe with them. That kind of stability isn't always flashy, but it is deeply powerful. The most enduring relationships in life aren't necessarily the ones that began with sparks and noise. They're the ones built like strong foundations, layer by layer, moment by moment, with steady love and reliable care. And the people who offer that kind of consistency, they are rare. But when you find them, you feel the difference immediately. You stop worrying, you stop doubting, you start resting in the peace that comes from knowing someone isn't going anywhere. In a fast-paced world where everything is constantly shifting, consistency feels like a gift. It tells you that you matter not just when things are exciting or convenient, but always. And those who offer that kind of friendship, quiet, reliable, unwavering, are the ones who help you build a life rooted in love, not noise. A friend who stays is a friend who heals, and that kind of presence changes everything. Quiet friendships are often the most powerful because they provide something rare in today's world, emotional safety. When someone allows you to be your true self without judgment, without pressure, and without expectation, that's not just a friendship, it's a sanctuary. In a time when everything is about being seen, being heard, and being validated publicly, having a friend who offers you space to simply exist without explanation is a quiet blessing. You don't have to constantly prove your worth, impress them, or put on a mask. You can exhale, you can be messy, you can be vulnerable, and they stay, not because of what you do, but because of who you are. So many relationships today are built on conditions. People stick around when you're fun to be with, when you're successful, or when you fit a certain image. But real friends don't need a version of you. They're not invested in your performance. They're invested in your person. The quietness of their love gives you permission to be still, to process, and to heal. You're not being watched or measured. You're simply being held. That's what makes it powerful, because in that silence, in that stillness, something beautiful happens. You grow. You grow without pressure, without fear, and without shame. Emotional safety is not something you shout about. It's something you feel. It's knowing you can call someone after months of silence and still be met with warmth. It's knowing that your lows won't scare them away. It's knowing that they'll carry your secrets like their own, and they won't weaponize your honesty. Quiet friends don't need to constantly be in your life to prove their love. Their presence is steady, their loyalty is unspoken, and their care is felt more in what they protect than in what they proclaim. In a culture of overexposure and performance, a friendship that allows for quiet is a refuge. It reminds you that love doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers, "I'm here," and proves it not through grand gestures, but through deep listening and patient presence. When someone offers you that space, it's not a lack of care, it's the deepest kind of care. They don't demand that you entertain them, they simply want you to be okay, and they'll sit with you in the quiet until you are. The kind of friendship that allows you to be fully seen, fully known, and still fully accepted, that's not just friendship. That's healing, and it often doesn't come with fireworks. It comes in the soft moments, the quiet support, and the unwavering consistency of someone who simply lets you be. True friendship reveals itself not when everything is going right, but when everything is falling apart. It's easy for people to show up when the celebration is loud, the joy is visible, and the success is flowing. But when the music stops, the lights dim, and life becomes hard and uncertain, that's when you see who really cares. A real friend doesn't vanish when the mood shifts or when you're no longer easy to be around. They stay through the storms, through the mess, through the moments that aren't Instagram worthy, and it's in those very moments that their love shines the brightest. There's a kind of sacred beauty in the friend who sits beside you in silence when you're too broken to speak. They may not have the perfect words, but their presence says everything. They don't need to fix you. They just need you to know you're not alone. They hold your pain with compassion, not pity. They remind you that even at your lowest, you are still worthy of love. That kind of presence is healing. It doesn't demand answers or explanations. It just stays quietly and faithfully until you're ready to stand again. During hard times, many people drift away, not because they're bad people, but because they're uncomfortable with pain. They don't know how to handle your silence, your sadness, your struggle. But a true friend doesn't need you to be okay to stick around. They're not afraid of your darkness because they're invested in your whole story, not just the highlight reel. And it's in that darkness where true friendship becomes a lifeline, something that doesn't just support you but helps carry you through. We often remember not what people said during our lowest points, but how they made us feel. The friend who picked up your call in the middle of the night, who brought you food when you didn't have the energy to cook, who just sat with you while you cried. Those are the moments that etch themselves into your soul. They may not come with fireworks, but they create the deepest kind of bond. One that is forged not in comfort, but in pain, not in ease, but in effort. When someone shows up for you during your hardest days, never take that for granted. Because that kind of love is rare. It's the kind of friendship that's not based on convenience but on character. And when you find it, you'll know you're not just seen, you're truly loved. In a world saturated with constant communication and non-stop notifications, it's easy to confuse attention for affection. Just because someone is present doesn't mean they're truly connected. Just because they respond quickly or engage with your posts doesn't necessarily mean they care deeply. Attention can be fleeting, driven by curiosity, convenience, or even ego, but affection, the kind that builds lasting bonds, comes from a deeper place. It doesn't always look loud or obvious. It's quieter, more thoughtful, and rooted in intention, not performance. There are people who check in when it benefits them, when they're bored, or when they want something in return. They'll flood your messages with emojis and compliments, but when life gets messy or uncomfortable, they disappear. That's attention. It feels good in the moment, but it leaves you empty. True affection doesn't just show up when things are easy. It's there when you're hurting, confused, or distant. It doesn't demand that you be entertaining or cheerful. It simply wants you to be okay. Affection is expressed in the small things, remembering something you mentioned weeks ago, showing up when you didn't ask, or noticing your silence and gently checking in. It's not about how often someone speaks to you, but about how deeply they care when they do. You can feel it in the way they listen, the way they respond, the way they stay. Attention wants to be seen. Affection wants to see you. Attention is about being noticed. Affection is about truly noticing you. Real friends aren't trying to fill a void with noise. They don't have to message constantly to prove their loyalty. What matters is the heart behind the interaction. Are they reaching out because they care about your well-being? Are they listening to understand, not just to reply? Are they invested in your growth, your peace, your healing? That's the difference. That's the line between someone who's just present and someone who's truly connected. We must learn to recognize the difference, so we don't give our hearts to people who are only half invested. A friend who offers you genuine affection, even in quiet ways, is far more valuable than someone who floods you with attention today and forgets you tomorrow. Look for the ones who show up with purpose, not performance. The ones who care when no one else is watching, because affection builds bridges that last, while attention often fades when the spotlight moves. Choose wisely. The heart can only take so many temporary connections. Nurture the ones that feel real, even if they aren't loud. They're the ones that will carry you through. In life, we often chase after exciting relationships, the ones that light up our world with instant chemistry and thrilling energy. But as time passes, We begin to understand that the relationships which truly last are not always the ones that start with sparks. They are the ones that are steady, the friendships that may not always be loud or dramatic, but are reliable, consistent, and quietly powerful. In a world that's constantly changing, where people come and go, a steady friend is a rare gift. Their presence becomes something you can depend on, a grounding force in the middle of life's ups and downs. There's something deeply reassuring about someone who doesn't waver. They're not only around when it's convenient. They don't disappear when things get complicated. They are constant. You don't have to question their intentions or fear that they'll forget you. They remember you, they show up, they check in even when there's nothing new to say. Their love isn't conditional or based on what you can give them. It simply exists without needing to be earned. That kind of loyalty is precious because it doesn't have to be loud to be real. It is proven over time in quiet moments of support and care. Many friendships start strong but fade away when life changes, when distance grows, or when people drift into different seasons. But those who are steady, who remain present regardless of how life evolves, leave a lasting mark. They don't make grand entrances or flashy promises. They just continue to be there. And it's that dependable, ongoing presence that makes the difference. They build trust not with words, but with actions. They become the people you turn to not because they make the most noise, but because they've always made you feel safe. When the world gets too chaotic, when your heart feels overwhelmed, it's not the loud, intense connections you seek, it's the steady one. The one that doesn't ask for attention but offers it quietly. The one that doesn't demand time but gives it freely. That kind of friendship doesn't just survive time. It thrives through it, it adapts, it deepens, and it strengthens with each passing year. Hold tightly to those steady friends, celebrate them even if their love isn't showy, because in the long run it's not about who cheered the loudest, it's about who never stopped showing up. That kind of consistency, that quiet loyalty, is what true friendship is made of. It's not always easy to find, but when you do, it's everything. Thank you.